Welcome to Chokeholds and Chill. I'm Jen, middle-aged grappler, coffee addict, and proud owner of the world's ugliest armbar.
And I'm Mallory, your training partner who's always laughing, even when being absolutely smashed, submission lover, and early bird fundamentals coach.
Here on Chokeholds and Chill, we dive into the lives of our favorite sparring partners, the highs and lows of training, and what it really means to chase big dreams on and off the mats.
But it's not just about jiu-jitsu. We're here for the laughs, the lessons, and the moments that remind us why we love this crazy sport and this crazy life.
We're here to talk about the good, the bad, and the hilarious, because let's face it, the mat teaches us more than just arm bars and mount escapes.
It teaches us about ourselves and how to navigate through life while being a part of an incredible community of people.
I mean, that's how we met.
Whether you're a seasoned competitor, a white belt finding your footing, or someone who just loves a good story, this podcast is for you.
It's about the roles we take, the people we meet, and the lessons that stick with us both on and off the mats.
So grab your gi, tie your belt tight, and get ready to roll with us.
This is Chokeholds and Chill. Let's get into it.
What's up, everybody? It's Mallory from Chokeholds and Chill. I am solo hosting today because this pod is coming to you from New York. I came in to visit some family, and every time I come home, I make sure that I drop into my home gym, which is MK Martial Arts in Marcy, New York. So since I knew I was going to be coming home to visit and I knew I would be dropping into some classes, I reached out to Mike and he so kindly agreed to sit down with me and be on the podcast. So today's episode is going to be with black belt Michael Karam, the owner and head coach of MK Martial Arts in Marcy, New York. We talk about his journey through Taekwondo as a kid, getting into wrestling, finding Jiu-Jitsu, earning his black belt, and eventually opening his own gym. He credits a lot of his work ethic to his dad, a Lebanese immigrant who owned a local restaurant that he and his family worked at, as well as the disciplined culture of martial arts that he grew up in. You can feel that same kind of discipline, hustle, and heart in the way that he trains and teaches. He's a super knowledgeable coach, so welcoming, and he's built an awesome community over there. On June 21st, they are hosting a seminar with UFC veteran Matt the Hammer Hamill at MK Martial Arts on River Road in Marcy. Spots are limited and they're going fast, so make sure you hit them up if you want in. So, with no further ado, here is my conversation with Michael. I was home in October for my wedding.
Yes.
And
Congratulations.
Thank you. I didn't come in. I was like all ready to come into a class.
You got more things to worry about than coming to train.
I was like all dressed, ready to come in, and then I was like, this would be the day that I would get my first black eye.
Yeah.
Like 3 days before my wedding. So like I told my husband.
Yeah, don't risk it.
I was like, I think I'm going to go. I was like, I think I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu, like one last thing.
Yeah,
before.
no.
And he was like, please don't get a black eye.
Anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah. So anyways. We'll get into it. So welcome to Chokeholds and Chill.
Thank you for having me.
This is the podcast where life and jiu-jitsu come together. We love to talk to all people inside and outside of the sport. So welcome.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for asking me to come on this.
Dude, I'm so excited. So we have Professor Mike.
Don't be so formal.
So, well, everybody knows I'm from here originally. Yep. I train in Oregon right now. I started training in Oregon, but this is like my home gym when I'm at home.
Love having you here.
And I love being here. I've dropped into a couple of other gyms when I first started training around here, and I was kind of like, I don't know. And then the first time I came in here, I just felt so welcome and at home.
Thank you so
much.
So
I recommend this place to everybody.
So that was one of my biggest things when starting the school is I really wanted to focus on environment. Because every environment is for a certain person, right? Yeah. You could find an environment that's exactly what you're looking for, and then somebody might walk in the door and be like, this place ain't for me, and I'm going to go find somewhere else. So I think that's the beauty of continuing to expand martial arts and different personalities opening up schools, is that you can have those different types of environments that you created. Some people want to go to a place where it's like Cobra Kai, where it's like, we're just going to try to kill each other here every single day. And some people are like, hey, I got a 9 to 5. I got 3 kids at home. I just want to get a sweat in, work out, learn some self-defense, and then be able to like enjoy the rest of my day. So I'm really happy to maybe kind of give more of that. I'm not saying that other schools don't have that avenue, but that's something that I personally wanted to create when I started my school. I wanted the place where the person that might be a little bit more intimidated to come to do jiu-jitsu would feel a little bit more welcome into my school. Because I take a little bit more pride in making the person feel super comfortable when they first walk in. Because let's face it, jiu-jitsu as is hard.
Yeah. You know, it
doesn't need to be any harder by having an attitude where it's dog eat dog and only the toughest are going to survive. You know, because again, back in the day, it's like, again, jiu-jitsu is built upon the weakest person needing jiu-jitsu. Right. So if you make it to where only the toughest people in the world are going to survive in the school, then you're kind of like leaving out that people that jiu-jitsu is really made for.
Right.
So.
Right. Absolutely. And I know like I think too, like coming as a female training, right? Like especially dropping into different gyms is super intimidating because it's such a male dominated environment. So like, I know, like, so we're just coming off of training today. I was the only girl in class, but what a great group of guys that you have. And like, I've never, ever felt uncomfortable training with anybody in your gym. So I think you do have like a really good environment and like good culture here. And that's so huge, like, especially coming from like a female's perspective. Because I've been in gyms where I'm like, well, this fucking blows. Like, I'm never coming back here. But I'm
sure it happens more than I'd like to admit. But I try to keep that standard and I try to reinforce those standards every time I get a chance. Okay. I like to look at it. I call it like conscious competitiveness, where it's like you should be able to train with a 6-year-old and a 60-year-old the same way, not necessarily. Like you have to be able to make those conscious adjustments in how you train with somebody based on a variety of factors. Okay. You got age, sex, skill, whatever you want, disabilities, whatever. Not saying that you got to go like easy on somebody, but you should be able to adjust your level of intensity and you can still be sharp. You can still train sharp with good technique, with just making some little adjustments it's kind of like unseen. It's hard to really quantify those adjustments that you make. But like I said, if you roll with a 6-year-old, the same way you roll it at somebody that's your age, your size, your belt level. No, you're not going to do that.
Right.
You're not going to do that. Again, it's not like, I'm going to take it easy on the 6-year-old, but I'm going to play a different style of jiu-jitsu. And that's kind of like how it is. You don't have to walk in the door and say, I'm going to take it easy on this person because it's a girl. But just understand that there are some other variables that are going to come into play that you just want to make those adjustments for. And I think that conscious competitiveness is something that I instill myself when I'm training with my guys. Okay. And what I expect my students to how they train with even a visitor. And then as you train with the same people over and over again, you can make those adjustments. Okay. Mallory, she comes in, she's game. She's 100. She's a pro belt. She's a game. She's a competitor. Okay, you don't have to again make as many little adjustments to how you spar. But again, all of that you can't do that off the first roll.
Right.
When you first meet somebody from the beginning, the last thing you want to do is boom, slap bump, and just try to kill at each other. Okay, because again, you're not setting that good environment where people are going to, no matter who you are, you're going to feel like, okay, this person cares about keeping me safe at the end of the day.
Right. And that's like my biggest thing too. I'm like, I want people to be as obsessed with jiu-jitsu as me. So like, I want it to be like, you want to come back and roll with me again. So it's like that mutual beneficial part of training. Like, I'm not going to try and like smash everybody, so, but I want to get into like,
some people need to get smashed.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And that's what I mean. Like after the first roll with somebody, you're like, okay, I think this guy needs to learn a little bit of a lesson on how to kind of like chill out. And that's the people that guys smash. So again, everything comes with a grain of salt. Like, sometimes smashing somebody is necessary.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, everybody needs a little mat enforcement once in a while.
Of course. The balance.
Yeah. So I want to get into like how you started jiu-jitsu and everything, because I know you got into it at a young age, like movies and stuff. And
martial arts in particular.
Yeah.
And jiu-jitsu later on in my life, obviously.
And your uncle was a taekwondo master.
So I started traditional, Eastern martial arts, taekwondo, hapkido when I was 6 years old. And growing up in the early 90s, late 80s, everything was like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Jean-Claude Van Damme, obviously some influence from Bruce Lee. So growing up with older cousins, we always used to watch Van Damme in particular. Van Damme was like, we would always watch Bloodsport and Kickboxer and all of. So again, I got into martial arts young. Come to find out, one Thanksgiving, I think it was, I'm 5 years old or so, and my uncle Yusuf comes in. He was like a 5th degree black belt in Taekwondo at the time, and then right away we started kind of talking about it, and it was easy. Boom. Next week we started doing classes, and I just kind of seemed to be like natural at learning these kind of things. Right away, I took to the technique. I took to being disciplined because my uncle ran it like a military. It was old school Taekwondo where it was like everybody's lining up, attention. He checks your nails. If your nails aren't perfectly trim and your gi isn't perfect, and then you're doing push-ups. So it was very military style. So again, it helped me develop some of that discipline and that work ethic, and just kind of like that presenting yourself like with a strong, confidence, chin up, shoulders back, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was kind of like my beginning into martial arts.
Yeah. And then you kind of like shifted away from it for a little bit, junior high. So where'd you shift to? I
shifted into high school wrestling, scholastic style wrestling. And you get to like those preteen years where it's like now your peer group is starting to kind of influence you a little bit more than as you look back, wish you maybe hadn't. And so I kind of like started to look at Taekwondo as like, kids do karate, Taekwondo, like that. Like I want to play like, team sports and stuff like that. So, I got into wrestling, but I only got into wrestling because of happened like a fork in my road. Like even while I was doing Taekwondo, I still played scholastic sports. I played football, I played baseball, I played basketball ever since a young age. So I was a very natural athlete. And so I had cousins in the area. They were big basketball players. So I was like, I want to play basketball like my cousins. I wasn't the best basketball player. I just played, AYSO style basketball. So now it's like, okay, not 7th grade, you got to try out for the team. So I did my best, you know what I mean? So I didn't make the team in 7th grade. So it's like, all right, I still got to do something. I wasn't just that kid that could just sit around and just wait for the next fall where football is. So I was like, come to find out, talking to my family, my mom's cousin, my uncle, was the state champ for my alma mater, New Hartford, back in the 70s. So I was like, oh, wrestling, cool. Come to find out, I had some other cousins that did a little bit of wrestling. I was like, all right, well, let's try it out. Whatever. There's no tryouts for wrestling.
Because it was
such a small program that, you know what I mean? There's never been a wrestling tryout in our high school because it's never been a big turnout. You need as many kids as you can. So they're just like, okay, you want to wrestle? Okay, you're on the team. So cool. But then again, I use that same kind of work ethic and mentality that I had doing other sports and say, okay, if you want to get good at something, you just got to stick with it. Stick with it. So did okay my first year. Second year, I continued to train and did really good my second year in 8th grade. And then kind of from there, I just continued to snowball my training and my confidence. As I was winning more and more, I became more confident, which made me want to train even more, start training in the off season. And then it just kind of snowballed into a decent high school career. I wasn't, the best guy in the state, but I was like that guy that you couldn't, you had to, mind your P's and Q's when you were going with me. So
you started in 7th, 8th grade?
7th grade I started, yeah.
And as far as like age range, were you like training with like high school level or
modified? So they call it modified. So it was 7th and 8th grade.
Okay.
And so my 8th grade season was still modified. I did really well that season. By the time I got to 9th grade, I went right to varsity, which you still train with the 9th and 10th and 11th. It's all one team because, again, there wasn't that many people. So it wasn't a big team for junior varsity and a big team. It was all the same. So the varsity and junior varsity all train together, and then whoever is the best in their weight class makes the varsity lineup.
Right, okay.
So I was fortunate enough to make the varsity lineup from 9th grade to 12th grade.
Awesome.
My 10th, 11th, and 12th grade years were the most where I had the most success as far as like tournaments and stuff like that, and winning records and making certain sectional qualifiers. So I basically I varsity from 9th grade to 12th grade, and that's more or less where my wrestling career would stop.
Okay.
Wasn't as interested in school through my high school career wrestling, which is probably why I did probably better at wrestling than I did, because again, I kind of slacked off as far as school goes. Instead of doing my homework, I went to the wrestling room, or I went to go, lift weights or whatever, do some cardio. So my grades, unfortunately, weren't the best, enough to get me through high school. But then when it comes to college, it's like, you want to wrestle? Okay. I wasn't good enough to wrestle where my grades could kind of like make the difference, so I didn't end up going to the college that I was looking at going to wrestle for the first semester, unfortunately. So it kind of wrestling had to take a little backseat in my life. So.
And then you did a little bit at a local community college?
I did like classes.
No wrestling.
Yeah, that would have been great. Looking back, I kind of wish I maybe found a community college, but unlikely that their community college is going to have it. Maybe they had a club somewhere, but my local community college didn't have any kind of wrestling at all, and there was no club wrestling at the time where you could stay active. So it was just college, a little bit of college, working, and then just kind of partying and stuff like that. So again, just being an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, again, life became more a focus of working and then having fun with my friends.
Right. So you kind of took a pause from like wrestling or any sort of martial art at that point.
Yep. Just kind of became like a gym rat, working out, lifting weights and stuff like that, which is good, which is important, just to staying physically fit and active. And at the time, just working for my family restaurant, which is kind of what I thought was going to be the trajectory of my career. Because again, I growing up being Lebanese American, work ethic was like number one. You work your ass off. You know what I mean? That's what I learned from my mother and my father is just you work your ass off. Whatever you do, you work your ass off. You be the best at whatever you do, and then you'll grow eventually. There'll be some transitional period where you grow into something that's gonna maybe make you more money or be more successful or give you more pride in what you're doing. It doesn't matter what you do. You're a janitor. You're a CEO, you do that job the best you can, you be the best at it, and then that will lead to other doors opening. Yeah. Right? If you just try to be mediocre at whatever you do, you're never going to get that opening in the next door to be more, to do more. So that's kind of like how I...
Did your parents have that restaurant like all growing up and everything?
Yeah. My dad came from Lebanon in the late 70s during the Civil War, and so he came here in like 77 or 78. Opened up a restaurant in 81, and he still has it to this day. That's so awesome. So we all kind of had our chance running the restaurant, and we all worked there, and then most of us kind of ran the restaurant at a certain point. So that's what I was doing from probably 05 to 09 or something like that. Even then, I would take breaks, not work there, to help out. So, but like my big was the late 2000s was I was like running the business. Yeah, and you have siblings? Five brothers. Oh, damn. Yeah, so we've all had our chance at kind of working there for the most part, and some of us went on to run it for a period of time. So while I'm running the restaurant is when I kind of got introduced to Jiu-Jitsu, 2010. Okay. Some old buddies that I wrestled with in high school said, hey, we're doing this, grappling, Jiu-Jitsu. You'd probably be really good at it because you were a good wrestler. So come on, try it out. So I was like, all right, looking to stay active, doing something different. And I always missed wrestling. So when they said it was kind of like wrestling, it's like grappling. Like, okay, cool. Yeah, just long story short, I came in for a trial class and signed up the next day and was just gung-ho dedicated to it for, till today. Yeah.
What would you say like the biggest difference or transition from wrestling to jiu-jitsu was for you?
Small tweaks. Really the same kind of mentality. If anything, the mentality of wrestlers, they do well at jiu-jitsu because they have that not giving up kind of mentality. Small little adjustments that you have to make. Obviously, certain things like not putting your back on the mat in wrestling gives up your back in jiu-jitsu. So the very classic is being more comfortable on your back, keeping your neck smaller and tighter. And because again, wrestling, you don't care. You're diving for the takedown. You're not worried about getting caught in guillotines, etc. And so little tweaks like that. But the mentality of committing like to a takedown, like that grit that you need to be a good wrestler, that comes into play in jiu-jitsu. So people that come from wrestling, they do well in jiu-jitsu because of that grit mentality, the mentality of repetition. Like how you drill in jiu-jitsu, it's like, it's a little bit more relaxed. It's like, okay, you do a rep, you reset, you do a rep, you wipe, you know what I mean? Not wrestling, it's like shot. You're doing 100 takedowns every training session before like you go on to do sprints or whatever. So the mentality of how you drill in wrestling makes wrestlers good at jiu-jitsu because again, it's all about repetition. And if I'm getting twice as many reps every class that you are, I'm going to get twice as better than you are at whatever position. Doesn't matter. Guard passing, mount escape, back escape. So it's the mentality of wrestlers to have that repetitive drilling that I think is why wrestlers get better at jiu-jitsu than one would think.
Right.
You see a lot of these wrestlers, Division I wrestlers, coming into jiu-jitsu and just getting really good because they have that mentality of drilling. And they already have mat time.
Right.
It's really all about mat time. You know what I mean? So a guy that's a Division I wrestler, they're wearing a white belt. That ain't a white belt.
They're not a white belt.
That's not a white belt. You know what I mean?
I call those fake white belts.
Yeah. You know what I mean? That's why, again, another reason why you have to kind of take consideration when you're rolling with people, cut back to our original conversation. Okay, yeah, this guy's a white belt, but his ears are all jacked up. He's been wrestling since he was 6. That's not the kind of guy that you got to like let work, or for lack of a better word. That's the kind of guy where you mind your P's and Q's because they're going to get on you. They're going to mount you. They're going to smash your face into the mat and you can't move. So we got to take everything with a grain of salt as far as how you train with a certain person.
Right.
Division I wrestler, they come on the mat. You probably need to go as hard as you can. And that's kind of what it is. So
yeah, immediately if I'm going against a wrestler, I'm like, I'm pulling guard.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm immediately like, you wrestled? Okay, pull guard.
You better pull guard because they're going to probably take you down and pass your guard right away.
Yep.
If they wrestle correctly, they're going to take you down, double leg you, pass your guard in, and then they're top chest to chest pressure, and then good luck. That's what they're pinning you. Right. And that's the essence of jiu-jitsu is pinning and escapes. Pinning somebody to the floor and escaping the pin. Right. If that's what you want to kind of base jiu-jitsu on, can you pin somebody to the floor? Can you escape if they're pinning you? That's the essence of jiu-jitsu. The submissions are all fun and stuff like that, and it's cool. But the essence is the control, right? As it's a common phrase, obviously, control position before submission. All those kind of phrases and sayings that you hear constantly. So. Yeah.
So your wrestling buddies got you into jiu-jitsu. Was it just like a club? Was it an actual jiu-jitsu gym?
Actual school gym. Yep. Still to this day is open. The original school in the area, Dojo One. They're about 20 minutes. I want to say
I've dropped in there before.
East of here in Washington Mills, New Hartford area. So my original school, trained there for 10 years, and I did everything. I competed. I fought MMA, amateur, a little bit of professional. I never did any kind of kickboxing, pure kickboxing. I trained kickboxing just as long as I've been training jiu-jitsu. But again, it was a great school. I was happy to come from those kind of roots. Original kind of person that brought it to the area, super technical, again, kind of very stoic kind of person, very like samurai style. So again, I felt comfortable there because it kind of reminded me of the training that was coming from Taekwondo, or Taekwondo, like kind of like the not necessarily military, but just like straight laced. Train hard, you know what I mean? Don't complain, you know what I mean? Work your ass off, which is good. And you need that kind of training sometimes too, right? So it's all super, super important. So I'm very blessed to be able to come from the roots that I did. So again, just work my ass off, train my ass off, taught classes. That's, I think, another thing that kind of helps you develop is teaching. Not for everybody, but was definitely something that I naturally took to.
Yeah. What teaching. Level, like how long were you training when you started teaching?
I would say, I think blue belt. Okay. So I think I got my blue belt relatively quickly in certain standards. Within a year, I got my blue belt. I think 9-10 months to get my blue belt. So standard wise, I was a very quick blue belt. But I think after I got my blue belt, it was helping with kids class. It was teaching fundamentals and stuff like that. Yeah. And I just never stopped all the way through until I got my black belt. And even after I got my black belt, until I opened up my own school, I should say, I was teaching classes. Ran the kids program, which was huge as far as me developing myself as a coach and as a practitioner myself. Is if you're able to teach a kid techniques and just make them understand concepts, it's like for lack of a better word, if you can teach a kid, you can teach an adult. And sometimes it doesn't work the other way around. Obviously, you can make things a little bit more complicated for an adult, but sometimes you need to understand how to break things down to make a kid understand it. And if you can make a kid understand it, you really understand the technique. You can make a kid understand it. An adult can kind of watch you do it. They have a little bit more understanding of how their body works. They can kind of monkey see, monkey do a little bit more. Kids need a little bit more understanding of breaking down certain principles. So you can teach a kid and they can learn it and they can apply it. That means that you really have an understanding of the principles and the technique and the concepts that are kind of underlying in the technique.
Well, I feel like sometimes when I'm like learning, there's so many details and so many things, right? So sometimes I'm just like, explain this to me like I'm 5.
Yeah.
And so it really does, like, if you
can
teach kids, you can teach anybody.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. So a little bit, like, tell me a little bit about like your belt journey. So you got your blue belt really quickly because you were essentially a fake white belt when you started.
Yeah.
What would you say like your biggest like milestones or like lessons you learned at each belt level? So blue belt.
I mean, you say white to blue, you got to try to break some of those habits that you did as a wrestler, right? So once you get comfortable being on your back, you get comfortable, protecting your neck, little things like that. That's where it's going to make the biggest difference being a wrestler. If you're constantly, every time somebody passes your guard, if you're immediately turtling, you're going to be getting your back taken more. You got to be dealing with that, right? So getting comfortable being on your back, learning how to accept being on your back, using your frames and obviously sort of shrimping and stuff like that, understanding angles, all those little principles was the biggest thing from white to blue belt. It's so hard because it's so long ago. It's hard to remember. Like you kind of like, you forget more than you've learned. Yeah. You know what I mean? You've learned so much that you forget about. So it's hard for me to say like what was a learning point or a milestone.
When did you do your first jiu-jitsu competition? At blue belt?
White belt. Oh,
white
no.
Belt, right off the bat.
No
okay.
way. White belt. Fresh, maybe 6 months in. Yeah. Maybe 6 months in, I did my first jiu-jitsu tournament. So I competed at every belt level growing up. White belt, again, not too many came to the area. They don't really come to our area that often, so you got to do a little bit more traveling. So I think my first tournament was like New Jersey. Quite a few tournaments we did in New Jersey. I think that was kind of like the most I went to in New Jersey. They weren't really coming to Syracuse at all with my white belt. This is early 2010. They weren't really coming to some of the smaller cities, so to speak. So I think New Jersey, we traveled to a bunch of times competing there as white belt. Same thing at blue belt. And then again, I think as I started to get to like the purple belt level, tournaments started to come a little bit closer. Rochester, Albany, and that's it. So yeah. I don't know what we're going to say there.
Yeah. What would you say, what was the hardest belt you think to get through? Were there any belts where you hit points where you're just like, you feel like, fuck, I'm plateauing and I'm just like stuck?
It's hard. Again, it's hard to say. I mean, blue to purple, in my opinion, is going to be the biggest kind of like hump. I think blue to purple, you should spend the majority of your training at. Because again, blue belt to purple belt, you really want to make all the mistakes that you can. You want to learn all those mistakes. You don't want to be at brown belt and be like, oh, I never learned how to defend my legs or like stuff like that. You know? So I think blue to purple is in my opinion the way at least how I look at my students. I want them to spend the most amount of time at blue belt, 4 years, whatever. You know what I mean? Again, it's different for every person, but you want to really have a well-rounded game by the time you earn your purple belt. You want to be able to understand the top game, the bottom game, transitions, every aspect of it. So yeah, blue belt I think was my biggest area where I started to really learn and grow. And then again, purple belt, brown belt, refinement. Really, that's what you kind of hear that a lot. Refinement, adding little tools, little tricks here and there that fit well into your game. Because again, you learn so much during the course of your training, whatever you train for 10 years, let's say, whatever. Not every technique that you're going to learn is going to fit for you. Right. There's styles, there's games, there's body types, there's all these different variables that come into play of you creating your game. So again, you teach something. Okay, you learn it, you drill it, you have to learn everything, so that way you can kind of learn because again, somebody, I don't play spider guard, right? It's not my game, but I better learn about what spider guard is in case somebody comes in and that's their game. I better understand spider guard, not necessarily to apply spider guard, but to learn how to, negate all the principles of it, learn how to break the connection, learn how to maintain base. So that way they can't implement spider guard on me. Okay? And then that's how many dozens of different guards there are. You need to learn everything, but you don't need to do everything. John Jacques is famous for saying, like, the more you know, the less you do. And then when he said that, I was like, oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That kind of, it fills in. Because again, now I'm 15 years in, I don't do very much. I have my specific game, and I can implement it to where that's really all I need. I can start to branch off if I want to start playing around. You know what I mean? I do a certain game, but once in a while I'll play with spider guard so that I keep myself sharp.
Right.
Because again, I'm going to teach spider guard, even though I'm not an expert at spider guard. I can't teach you all the different transitions from. And that's another kind of misconception. It's like, oh, you're a black belt, you don't know everything.
Right.
Like, yeah, man, I don't know everything. Like, any black belt that tells you they know everything, they're probably just blowing smoke up your ass.
Bullshit.
Yeah. But and being humble to say, yeah, I don't know everything, and maybe I can point you towards somebody that probably knows more about a certain thing that I do. And that's the biggest humbling thing that you realize is when you do get your black belt, you think it's this enlightenment belt where you're a black belt now, you're supposed to know everything, and then you just kind of you realize that it's just it's not what people make it seem to be. When you're a white belt and you look at a black belt and you're like, oh, they know everything. They can answer all of my questions, and they could probably answer a lot of your questions. But then when you get to black belt and then you look back, you're like, oh crap, I don't know everything about everything, especially nowadays when you're getting into this modern jiu-jitsu. And now it's crazy how many different types of transitions and the guards, and every day you're hearing about some new guard. Now it's octopus guard and not lapel guard, and where they grab your lapel and they take a De La Riva and they pass it under their ankle. And I remember and it's all effective. I remember experiencing lapel guard the first time when I was probably a purple or brown belt, and I was at an advanced open mat where it was purple belts and up, and a purple belt put me in this lapel guard where they were wrapping my lapel under their ankle with a De La Riva, and it was effective. It was able to put me onto my butt, and I had to work from a inferior position, so I kind of expanded my. You're like, what the hell was this? And then, okay, you ask a question. Be like, oh, can you do that again? And then you got to kind of reverse engineer the movement, and then you continue to grow.
Right.
But you're only as good as the other person's offense in your defense's comparative.
Right.
You know what I mean? If somebody's spider guard is better than my spider guard defense, they're going to be effective with it. So that's kind of really all it is. You're never too good to meet somebody with a better game, a specific game than you. And that's why it's important to continue training and continue to seek out those people that can challenge you.
Yeah.
Which is tough when you open up a school and now you're more focused on just helping everybody learn. Your learning takes a little bit of a back seat, but you can find ways to learn even though you're focused more on a teacher. Obviously, taking seminars, bringing people in that can help kind of teach certain things that you don't know as much about. But yeah,
I think that teaching has definitely done so much for me, in my training and advancing and everything, because I feel like you get asked these questions and you're like, fuck, I don't know. And it makes you think it through, and you're like, okay, I guess I would do this. And it's nice to be able to kind of piece that together.
Absolutely.
But I always tell people that come and take my classes, if they ask me something and I'm like, well, I personally just wouldn't do that. Okay, sure. I'll show you this escape. I never hit this escape, but I'll show you how to do it, and hopefully you can do it better than me.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So I think that the best coaches are humble and still wanting to learn and everything.
Yep.
So 10 years in, you got your white belt or your black belt.
Yep. 10 years.
Tell me about that. Was that just the most exciting
proud
moment?
It was awesome. Again, by the time you get to black belt, you've already put in so many years. It's definitely a great feeling to get. And the way you do a lot of times ceremonies, you know what I mean, a belt ceremony. A lot of times you just earn your belt. You just come in the day and it's just boom, you earn your belt. And I only earned my purple belt that way. Every other belt, blue, brown, and black, it was you go through the gauntlet, and you and whoever else is getting promoted, you're down. There's 40 people around you, and they Shark Tank you for an hour. So really, my blue belt, brown belt, and black belt was like that. Brown and black belt in particular, because at the last like 20 minutes was like self-defense. So I was like, okay, everybody's throwing gloves on and they're punching you in the face.
Oh, damn.
So, you know what I mean? And I was glad that I grew up in that environment of, this is not a sport. This is a fight. Like, you know, you have to learn how to use jiu-jitsu in terms of a fight. And that's my perspective. Every time I teach a class is, okay, don't get it twisted. This is fun what we're doing, but always remember, you know, you're training for the street realistically. And if you're not getting used to learning how to get hit in the face, learning how to deal with getting hit in the face and trying to stay on point with your training and in your game, then you're doing a disservice to yourself. Okay, you punch a black belt in the face, they become a brown belt. You punch them again, again, that's another common saying, which is 100% true. So like tonight, we do our combat jiu-jitsu class. Right, let everybody know, like this is, we're going to do jiu-jitsu, but it's not going to be fancy stuff. We're going to focus on clinching, distance management, right, punch protection, and we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of it, which is super important. So that way, when you do end up on your back and somebody's trying to hit you, you're not reaching for their head. Okay, you're not just pushing them away because now they're at an arm's length distance. They can hit you. Okay, you're focusing more on clinch or making enough space to where they can't hit you. So you're not playing in that gray zone where 90% of jiu-jitsu schools are playing in. Right, open guard, you know, half guard with, you know, whatever. You understand what I'm saying? Like you can't hang out in those mid-range distances, that red zone. It's either you're 2 arms length away or you're chest to chest in a clinch where the punches are going to be less effective. It's more MMA style. And again, I train MMA since I was a white belt. So it's important to have that aspect of jiu-jitsu where it's not just, this is a sport. This is for fighting. Right. It is a self-defense art in its core. And then there's shit going around where this person says, oh, jiu-jitsu is bullshit for self-defense. Maybe your jiu-jitsu is bullshit for self-defense. Right. Maybe yours is, but not mine. And I've made that a point from day one to teach all my students that you're going to learn how to deal with punches. And if you don't want to come to that class, you're doing yourself a disservice. Maybe you might not be ready for it. And I tell you, okay, maybe you're not ready for it. Maybe you're still 6-month white belt. Okay, just come to the fundamentals class where we do all the same stuff. All my fundamentals is all self-defense based. Okay. And then that's what it is. It's a very important part of training to learn how to deal with somebody that wants to hit you in the face. At the end of the day, self-defense. And if you're not prepared for it, that's a comfort zone that you need to get out of. Right. That's the comfort zone that you need to get out of, is learning how to deal with stuff like that.
My professor is a smaller dude. So they just, you know, people, you walk past him on the street and you would not think that he would be able to just murder you. And that's what I love about jiu-jitsu is like, for sure. It is just self-defense. And it's just like, since I started training jiu-jitsu, I feel so much more like secure and like confident and like just being able to walk around and know that like, if somebody tries to fuck with me, like I can at least like defend myself and get away.
100%.
And I think that that's the most like
it is the most
important thing.
But I mean, back to the question, what was it like getting your black belt?
Oh yeah.
We got on a tangent. Yeah. But it was great. Again, it's a graduation day. It's okay. You were in college for 4 years and you did and then you're gonna get your diploma. Getting that black belt tied around you, it definitely felt awesome. It was a little bit bittersweet because like 2 weeks later, COVID hit and everything shut down. So I was a black belt for like 2 weeks and then everything shut down. So, I mean, that kind of sucked. You know, I wasn't able to continue to train as a black belt for very long. But then again, things started to loosen up and everything like that. And that's kind of where my journey into becoming a coach really shifted.
Perfect segue, because that's what I was going to ask. Like, at what point in your journey, obviously you've been coaching since blue belt level, at what point were you thinking about like, okay, someday I want to open my own place? Blue belt, you knew like right off that point.
100% blue belt. I remember having the conversation with my instructor. I'd be like, oh man, this would be so cool to have my own school one day. I honestly could think of, since I was a kid, seeing what my uncle had, you know what I mean, at school, and be like, I thought that's what he did for his job. Come to find out when I'm 20, I was like, no, he was an engineer and he just did this on the side.
That's
you know what I mean? So it was really cool to see, but it's like, I feel like I remember since I was 6 years old, man, this is so cool to have, like, train all day long, you know, teach class and make it your living. So since I was a kid, I feel like I remember having that desire, that goal, didn't think it was realistic. Blue belt, jiu-jitsu blue belt, I remember having the conversations of, yeah, maybe I would love to do this one day. You know what I mean? But again, it just didn't feel like it was possible at the time. Like most things, like it just seemed so far into the future. And then like I wasn't really thinking about it. So I was really more concerned from blue belt to black belt was just teaching. Okay. Because again, if you want to become a instructor at a school, you got to be able to teach. So, okay. So this is my education. Teaching is my education on learning how to teach. Because you're not going to be good at teaching the first time you do it. You got to suck at something before you're going to be good.
Right.
You know what I mean? That kind of keeps you humble as an instructor. Be like, okay, just teach what you know. Okay. At blue belt, you only know so much. So just teach what you know. Don't be all in your ego to where like I got to teach something cool today. I got to teach a fancy move. Like no, just teach what you know you can teach. And then over time you'll learn more, and then eventually you'll understand that enough to teach it. And then you can teach that. And then it's just a snowball effect of gaining knowledge, using teaching to help refine your knowledge of that. Because again, sometimes when you teach something, you'll learn it even better. Because somebody will ask a question and then you're like, you know what I mean? Let me think about that. And I'll until this day, I'll be okay with it. Let's try to figure it out. If somebody asks me a question, I'll be like, not sure what you're asking. Show me the situation that you're putting yourself in. Put me in the situation, and then okay, I can reverse engineer it and break it down. So you're not like ChatGPT where somebody asks you a question and you're like, here's the answer. And it's just like sometimes you have to feel it. And jiu-jitsu is a lot of feeling. Okay, where's your base when somebody's doing this kind of guard? Okay, where's the connection you have to the person? How is your weight distribution? All those kind of little, that's invisible jiu-jitsu that they don't teach you. Everybody thinks it's a step 1, step 2, step 3. But before any of those steps happen, you have to develop your base, your weight distribution, your connection to the person. And then you can go through the steps. Once you put yourself in good position, then you can move on to the step-by-step process. So being a coach was a culmination of 8-9 years of teaching and learning, and over time refining how I taught and teaching the kids classes. Since I was a blue or purple belt, I started the kids program. So it was 6-7 years of teaching kids that really helped me develop.
That's a lot. You're a patient person. Like, holy cow.
Yeah.
So at what point did it start to be like this tangible thing? Like, okay, like the planning for opening your own place.
So during COVID, as things started to kind of open up a little bit more, people were not is eager to get into big group classes. So I started to find a lot more interest to me in private, semi-private lessons. So started with a private lesson. Okay. Then 2 people, then 3 people were in the lesson, and then 4 people in the lesson. So kind of like naturally kind of grew. I was just doing it once a week. And then it got to the point where it's okay, guys, this day, this time, I'm teaching a jiu-jitsu class. You know what I mean? So, and again, that's how it built. It was 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people. Like, now they got 7 people in class, and it was just kind of a natural thing. And I was happy enough that the person that I was doing most of these classes with was the facility owner that we're in right now.
Oh, okay.
So he was like he was training with me back in the day. I was doing private lessons with him when I was training at Dojo 1, and then again, COVID hit. And kind of little by little, hey, me and my buddy, we're trying to do jiu-jitsu, just us 2 to keep it small.
Yeah. Can
you come and just teach us a little bit? Because they're both white belts. They don't know. They're just trying to do what they remembered before COVID hit. So I would come in, I would teach them. And then, okay, I got 1 more person to come in on this day. And then over time, it was like 7-8 people are coming consistently every Thursday. And it was just like something just a drop in, $10.
Yeah.
Just something to kind of make my time. I was still working a full-time job at the time. So it was like, I only had 1 day a week where I could kind of maybe do this. And it was like 1 person come in, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 7 people every Thursday, 7 people. And then he kind of looked at me and he's like, hey dude, like, you ever want to kind of turn this into a business? Let's figure something out.
Yeah.
So we sat down, came up with a business plan, came up with a lease, rent, whatever you want to call it. And then I went and I invested some money into mats. And then little by little, I had to buy more mats. And little by little, before I make it official, like I started an LLC, like, you know what I mean? I kind of I took all of his advice, because then he built this business from a small little garage CrossFit. You know what I mean? Now he's got this, huge, 12,000 square foot facility where he has hundreds of members. So he was very much a mentor and a student at the same time.
Yeah.
So he was my student in jiu-jitsu, but my mentor in the business realm. So he kind of helped me, guided me through the process of, okay, this is step 1, step 2, step 3. And I was just diligent. And just like my training taught me when I was 6 years old, just be committed, be focused, be diligent with what you need to do, get your ducks in a row. And then over time, boom, 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 spent a little bit more money on mats, branded myself, website, all that. And I was really focused on creating everything before jumping into it head first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I wanted to do everything the right way so that when the opportunity arose, I could jump into it. And again, it's like a common thing is like luck is preparation meets opportunity, right? So he's giving me the opportunity. Now I got to get my ass prepared for it so that when I do finally like launch in July of 21, I was already set and I could already start with my billing system, my YouTube channel, all that jazz. So it was July of 2021 is when I opened my doors to the public, and it's just been a super awesome slow build.
Yeah, you guys are slow like build. I feel like following it along on Instagram. I'm like, look at those classes. Yeah,
it's cool. It's cool to see it.
And I think the first time I dropped in was in 2022. Okay, I was a white belt. So
was there wall mats? It probably weren't even wall mats at the time. Maybe? I
think they were new.
Okay, so I think that they were.
I think that they were new. Yeah. But yeah, so it's like I feel like this is like my second home gym.
That was when it started to actually feel more like a school, because before it was just mats on the floor, and then you never had that wall element, which every school has a wall element. Right. When we put the walls up, that's when it started to feel like a school. I remember getting done with the walls and then stepping back and looking, and I was like, this feels like a school now.
And having your logo up on the mat.
The logo was the first thing. When I opened my day on day one, John, my mentor, he had my logo on the big garage doors. And so walking in, that was a surprise. I didn't know he did that.
Oh, that's awesome.
I didn't know he did that. So like on kind of like day one, like I don't cry. I
would have cried.
I was crying because it was like a culmination of just seeing it, an envision in your head, and then seeing it on a big, huge garage door, a 12-foot logo that
this is real.
That really took a tear to my eye, and him not telling me really, really brought a tear to my eye. I'm kind of getting choked up right now.
That's so awesome, though.
But yeah, so seeing it come to life, it made me more energized to keep going. You know what I mean? When you see those little milestones, it keeps reinvigorating your progress and giving you more motivation. Although I never really needed motivation because I was dedicated. Yeah. Like dedication and work ethic, it overshone my my motivation. Because motivation is fleeting. It's like a valley up and down. Dedication is just every day. You get up at 6 a.m. It doesn't matter how you feel. That's how my classes started. I started my program with only 6:30 a.m. classes because there was a gap in the demographic in our area. Everything was in the evening times.
Right.
I was working a 9 to 5. I met my wife. I had my, I wanted to start a family. So it's like those evening times were more precious. So I was like, okay, let me start this in the morning. Start by the morning. Then when I work my 9 to 5, I can be home with my family. And obviously it built to where now I have evenings. I'm teaching classes, but now I have the daytime full open because I teach in the morning and then teach in the evening. So my day is full with family, being with my son and my daughter and my wife. And just little by little over time, building more classes, building more programs, kids, the kickboxing, MMA, the fundamentals. And it was just a slow build over time, just continuing to develop a martial arts academy.
So I want to kind of pivot over into the wife and kids aspect of life.
Sure.
Because I love to ask people about this because my husband does not train jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
So like there's the element of like having a non-training partner as your partner. Your wife does not train jiu-jitsu.
Nope.
When did you guys meet? Like at what point in your jiu-jitsu martial arts journey?
Into it. I was a brown belt, I want to say. I was a brown belt at the time. So it was a non-negotiable.
Yeah, of course.
It was non-negotiable. The hardest thing is meeting a girl when you're a white belt. It's still, because it's still like a new hobby that you're doing.
Right.
And you know what I mean? So I was lucky enough to meet her when I was already into my journey, and she knew from the beginning that I was a very dedicated martial artist, and that was my lifestyle, and that's what I identified as. So it was non-negotiable. I'm training. Yes, my training backed away a little bit because again, I still wanted to. I had to make
had to be balanced.
I compromised is what I was looking for. So I had to make a compromise. Yes, I'm interested in her. I want to spend time with her. Evening times are very valuable because she works a job. So okay, yeah, I went from training 6 days a week to training 3 days a week. Okay, whatever, cool. So it was still non-negotiable though. I had to train, and I tell people, like, when you are meeting somebody and they are interested in you, and you train jiu-jitsu, the reason why they're interested in you, not because you're training jiu-jitsu, is because of what jiu-jitsu is giving you.
Oh my gosh!
Right? You're confident, you're calm, you're patient, you're composed. All these little things that jiu-jitsu will help build in you. That's what's attractive to you. So if you stop training jiu-jitsu because you meet the girl, then you're going to probably lose all those attributes that she liked you for. It's very similar in the opposite direction. Like if you meet a girl in a club, you see her in the club all the time, you meet that girl in the club, and then guess what? Where do you think she's going to go? She's going to go to the club. So when you want her to stop going to the club, she's going to go to the club, and now you don't like her anymore because she's going to the club. So that's like, it's very important that the reason why you like somebody, you want it to be a positive thing. Right. So if you like somebody, if positive things they're doing in their life, the club is an okay example because it's probably not the best thing that they're doing. Right. But you can't be surprised that that's who they are.
Right, exactly.
So you met them in the club, and that's where they're going to go. And she knew I trained jiu-jitsu, and I love jiu-jitsu. And I kind of joke around, don't make me choose. Don't make me choose. Just don't even bring it up. I'll compromise with you. I love you. But don't make me choose. If you give somebody a hard line in the sand, then you know what I mean. You might be really upset that you gave somebody that ultimatum. So I always joke at her, "Don't make me choose. Don't make me choose."
Has she ever dropped into any classes or tried it out?
Never once.
No,
nope, never once. Nope. And I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. But no, never once. But she, our daughter, I have a stepdaughter with her. I got her into jiu-jitsu when she was 7 or 8, I think it was. And so she trained for a couple of years, and then COVID hit, and that was kind of our bonding was jiu-jitsu. So we would go in the basement, I would set up the mats, and we would do jiu-jitsu. I kind of still look back at some posts that I had of me doing jiu-jitsu with her in the basement. She doesn't train anymore, unfortunately. It was a great time, and I'm glad that she trained for a couple of years because she learned some good skills. Yeah. You know what I mean? And she was doing pretty good. I was upset when she didn't want to do it anymore. But again, she became 12 years old. And just like me, when I was 12, I didn't want to do the martial art anymore. I wanted to do school sports. Right.
Hey, maybe in 10 years.
She'll be. Again, and then that's fine. So I never pressured her. Okay, you really don't want to do it? As long as you're asked to stay active. Yeah. Okay, you're not going to not do jiu-jitsu and then sit in your room all day long. So she plays sports three seasons a year. She does soccer. She in the winter she did like off-season soccer. But I think next year she might do like volleyball or something like that. And then now in the spring she plays lacrosse. So she's active. As long as you're active, you don't want to do jiu-jitsu. Okay, fine, totally fine. You're not going to be nothing. You're not going to not do anything. Okay, so that's where we're at. She's 14 now. Oh, wow. And so she's active. She's a good kid. She doesn't give us a headache. But again, maybe when she gets a little bit older, she'll find her way back in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. That's so cool because it's a very different dynamic than what I experienced, right? Because I was with my husband for 5 years before I started training jiu-jitsu.
Okay. So before you started training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Awesome. So it was like 4 or 5 years I think we were together. Yeah. And then I found this, fundamentals class and I jumped in, and like first day I came home and I was like, I love this. Awesome. Like I'm going to do this forever.
That's awesome.
And I don't know that he took me seriously at first. But thank God, like he was always really cool about it because awesome. You know how guys can be weird, like
especially in that dynamic.
In the
girl doing it and not the guy doing it. That's very, very difficult to handle. cross question, did he ever jump into a class?
He took a couple classes. He did a 2-week trial. It wasn't his thing, which is totally fine. I have asked him, I was like, will you just come and take one of my classes just once? Just because now I feel like this is this whole part of my identity, like as a jiu-jitsu coach, where I'm like, I feel like there's this whole part of me that you don't know. So I'm like, I just like maybe one time he'll come to one of my classes, but he's not into it, and that's totally cool.
Yeah, be true to yourself.
It's not for everybody.
Being true to yourself is super important.
But he's always like in my corner. He goes to all my competitions. Awesome. He's awesome. So
that's very cool.
But yeah, it is a very different dynamic because
very difficult.
He's seen me like develop into this different person, really. Sure. And I think that he would vouch for how much the sport has given me as far as like confidence wise and like I'm so calm under pressure.
Again,
like
the same attributes that I was talking about before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Oh, and then you have another kid, younger.
Yep, I have a 4-year-old son. He'll be 4 in August, and we have one on the way.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. That's so exciting.
Another August baby, potentially. Again, early August, maybe late July. Me and her go back and forth. She's like, I think he's going to be an August baby. I said, no, I think late July. So we're joking about it. But yeah, so we're having another boy and later on in the summer. So we got a full house.
That's exciting.
Yeah, luckily it was a boy, because if we were having a girl, which I honestly would have been a little bit more excited. Not that I wasn't having another son, but I was more excited. I'd probably more excited if it was a girl, because it would have been a really big growth opportunity for me.
Mm-hmm.
Again, growing, as you get older, you realize how important growing is, and putting yourself in those things that you're not familiar with is going to help you grow. I grew up with 5 brothers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I grew up with 5 brothers. So girl, I knew nothing about. I had maybe 1 or 2 girl cousins that were local, but I never, grew up knotting on hair and doing all this other stuff. And you know what I mean? So having a daughter would have been, though I have a stepdaughter, but she was a little bit older when I came into her life. So there wasn't that baby phase. She was like, she was 7 years old, 8 years old when I came around. So she was already a young girl. But we would have fun, and so I did have a little bit of that, but I never had to do her hair as mom would do. So I never really had to do all that stuff. So having a daughter from birth would have been a really big growth opportunity for me. But I'm blessed to have another son coming.
That's exciting. Yeah. Oh, congratulations. Thank you so much. Thank you. With your 4-year-old, are you wrestling with him at home and stuff?
All the time. He knows how to tap out.
I love it.
He knows how to tap out. It doesn't matter where I put it. Anytime I grab him, he locks and he taps on my arm. And then if I don't let go, he goes, Dad, I'm tapping out. Dad, I'm tapping out.
I love
and I was like, all right, let it go. He hasn't, he'll wrestle around with me a little bit, but I'm not too quick to get him on the mats right away. So again, he's still 3, turning 4. Yeah. It's super early. Some people start their kids out at jiu-jitsu at 4, which is awesome. But let the kid be a kid a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think by the time he's 5, 6, where I started martial arts at 6 years old, which I started pretty much everything. All sports I started around 6. I think that's 6, 7. I think that's the best time to start kids in martial arts. You can start them early, of course, if you want to. But I think 6, 7 years old, that's the sweet spot where they know how to move their body enough. They're a little bit more aware. They can understand direction a little bit better. You can understand 4-year-old. You can tell a kid to do something at 4, yeah. But giving a little bit more direction, I think 6, 7, I think is the sweet spot when you start kids into martial art or any kind of sport. So,
yeah. So, I just had a question on my brain. Now I forgot it.
I know I'm very hypnotizing when I talk.
You really are. I'm like, damn. I'm like, I barely even need to look at what I have here, because I'm like, you're just giving all my segues and everything. So appreciate that. So as far as you said you're not pressuring it, but he's probably going to want to get into wrestling and jiu-jitsu.
Maybe. We'll see. I don't know. He loves soccer. He loves kicking the soccer ball around the house. So maybe he'll get into soccer. I love soccer. I wish I had played soccer as a kid. I played football as a kid. Looking back, I probably would have been better off being, right now I'm 145 pounds soaking wet. So it's I was a tiny ass kid, just looking back at the days, and I was getting leveled playing football as a kid. And all through I played from 6 years old to 18. So for 12 years, I was getting just wrecked on the football field, just getting tackled and and I played special teams, so it was like full sprint down the man.
Right,
boom,
right.
That's all I did as a kid. So I was like, I'm sure I got some CETE coming my way.
Oh God, I hope
my
not.
wife will agree.
So as far as like being a smaller guy, obviously like this, like doing these combat sports will definitely build up your confidence and everything. How do you train differently with like bigger people versus smaller people?
Being small has its advantages. There's definitely an advantage to every body type. It doesn't mean like, just because you're bigger, you're going to be better at jiu-jitsu. And in fact, a lot of times it's the opposite. I can fit myself into different positions that a big guy can't. I can manipulate my body differently than a big guy can. I can, find space. Like all I need is a little bit of space, and I can get a hook in there. I can find my underhook. I can, I can escape the position. So, being a small guy, you have to definitely mind your P's and Q's, right? But you have your advantages as long as you can, whatever the word is I'm trying to find. You can use your advantages to your favor, right? If you're a small guy, you better be able to utilize every attribute you have to work your game and your style. Okay? If you let a big guy get on top of you in side control, it's going to be tough for you to work. So, biggest thing in general, that's not necessarily going against somebody bigger or smaller, but not letting somebody control your head. That's just like, that's big. Again, it's kind of based on like self-defense stuff. You know what I mean? Don't let anybody near your head. So you're T-Rexing arms, you're framing on the crossface. Crossface, lately, when you get a big person on you, even if you have an underhook, people have that, what's more important, the crossface and underhook? And they kind of like that little debate. If you let a big guy get a crossface on you, even if you have your underhook, man, it sucks. Again, it's about that spinal shift, like learning to turn the person's face away. So when you have that that cranial shift, it's very hard. It's even with your underhook, man, if somebody has a good crossface pressure on you and they're bigger than you, that sucks. So I've been more focused on negating crossface rather than working to get my underhook. Obviously, if you could do both, if you can get your underhook and block their crossface, then you're in a good position. But if you had to choose one or the other, I'm going to block the crossface.
Oh my gosh.
So that was what my big kind of like overall lesson learning as a smaller guy is not letting a bigger guy control your face. So, yeah.
And I think it's really cool, like as a coach too, like being a smaller person, like it shows people a lot, like especially new people coming in. Like I know like the guy that I do demonstrations with in my classes, he's like 50 pounds more than me, but I love using him because like, especially like for women in my classes, I'm like, this stuff works on bigger people.
It works.
If you get the technique down, it works. I just remembered the question that I was going to ask before, but with the kind of going back to the kids for a second, do you get parents like coming into your adults classes after their kids start?
100%. Yeah. One person in particular is really starting to take on. He's probably getting on like month 9 now, month 8 or 9, which is really where things start to kind of click. A year, I say, like, a year. If you're not willing to do jiu-jitsu for a year, you're not willing to learn it. You got to give it a year of making mistakes and learning and really accepting the art. So he's kind of into month like 8, 9, I think right now. And he's really starting to kind of click because he was like kind of like me. He was a wrestler. Yeah. So he was a bigger guy too. So he would watch his kid every class, and then I could just kind of see his eyes like kind of moving when his kid is moving. Like especially when the kids start to go live, I see the dad kind of, you
can see him getting excited.
Shadow wrestling in the corner. And then he kind of asked me about it. I said, look, awesome, dude. I'd love to have you, man, anytime. I'm not a pressure person. Like if you come into my school, I'll let you try a class. I'll talk to you. I'll make it exciting. But I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you to do jiu-jitsu. Like either you see the value in it or you don't see the value in it. Okay? I'm not going to give you a certain sentence that's going to make you say, oh, yeah, I see the value in it. So just by little over time, he's like, okay, I'm gonna come tomorrow. Okay, I'll see you there. Yeah, awesome. And then boom, right away, boom. I love it. So yeah, I've had that. Again, sometimes it's the reverse. Sometimes it's their parents that get the kids into it, and sometimes it's the kids that get the parents into it. And, it works really well.
Yeah, I think it's just so good for kids.
With kids, it's different. I mean, you want a kid to be good at jiu-jitsu, but don't forget about the true reason for like being good at jiu-jitsu isn't what's more important. It's the path of getting to jiu-jitsu. Who you become is more important. Like I say it to some of my adults, and I'll tell this to my kids. Like, if you become the best jiu-jitsu practitioner in the world and you become an asshole, then jiu-jitsu did not serve you. If you become a mediocre grappler, whatever you want to call it, but you become the best person you could be, jiu-jitsu served you well.
I love that.
So becoming good at jiu-jitsu is almost a byproduct of the training. Becoming a more confident, more calm, more patient, a more humble person. Those are really the keys of why do I train jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Being able to do an arm bar, okay, great, that's awesome. Dedicating your body to the training needed to be able to do the arm bar is the right. So it's kind of like they got the common. It's the journey, not the destination.
Right.
That becomes a super important part of why you train and why you continue training.
Oh.
So let jiu-jitsu serve you for what it's truly meant to be. It's again, Rogan says it all the time. It's like a vehicle for self-development. All martial arts, whether you want to do jiu-jitsu, whether you want to do karate, I don't care. You want to stop doing jiu-jitsu and you want to do karate, go for it. If it helps you stay active and become a better person, then good for you. I'm obviously going to be a little bit more biased to jiu-jitsu, but cool. If your kid doesn't like jiu-jitsu and they want to go do karate and then they want to do karate for 30 years, they're probably going to be a better person than quitting jiu-jitsu and then sitting in their room all day long. So cool. I'm open to everybody having their ability to express themselves however they want, whether it be through jiu-jitsu or art or soccer or whatever. That's it.
Would you say that's like one of your favorite things about being a coach is like giving people that kind of like avenue to explore 100%. That?
As many kids have I seen go from being a timid, scared little kid to becoming a confident person. As many kids as I've seen do that, oh man, it's the best feeling in the world where you see a kid that click that kind of the kid has where they're sick and tired of just getting pushed around. I'm going to start pushing back now. And you see that lion come out of the kid a little bit, the lion and the lamb. I use that metaphor a lot with the kids. I heard it with from I forget his name. He's a Instagram guy. He runs the Cave of Abdullah. I can't remember his name. It's slipping my head. But he's a guy that he works with underprivileged kids in Chicago area, I think it is. But he says, the lion and the lamb, you know what I mean? You got to learn how to let the lion out so that way you can learn how to control the lion when you need it.
Right.
If you're so worried about letting the lion out, you never let the lion out, then you're going to get rolled over the rest of your life. But if you don't let the lion out enough, you learn how to control the lion to where it doesn't become like my brother was bothering me, so I punched him a bunch of times. You know what I mean? You got to kind of like learn how to let the lion go so that way you can realize what the lion's capable of. So that way you can learn how to tame the lion to become like its true lion self. Like the lion doesn't lash out uncontrolled. It knows when it needs to be a lion. It does what it has to do, and then it goes back to being calm and being like majestic, like you see a lion. Like the lion isn't roaring all day long. It's not like, it's calm, it's majestic. But when you need that lion to come out, you have trained that lion to come out, do what it has to do, and then go back into to being the lamb and that being calm and being sensitive. Because there's that again, back to the Cave of Abdullah, the comprehensive man is both strong and calm, both, assertive but patient. You know what I mean? That balance of life. I've been really into a Bruce Lee kick lately with Taoism and yin yang and kind of understanding the balance of all of that.
Yeah.
I know how to be aggressive. If I want to be aggressive, I can, but I also know that I have the ability to be aggressive, so I don't need to be aggressive.
Yeah.
Right? I'm confident in myself and what I know I can do that I don't need to do it.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah, you can see it in how you carry yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
So, yeah.
The virtue. Jordan Peterson kind of guy. And I love his stuff. Some of his stuff really clicks into me. He goes, there's no virtue in being weak. If you've listened to some Jordan Peterson stuff.
I haven't, but I'm going to have to.
He's big Rogan guy, being a jiu-jitsu guy, but he said, "There's no virtue in being weak." He goes, "I'm strong." He goes, "I'm weak, therefore I'm good." Like, no, he says, if you go away, he goes, "No, that's not how it works." He goes, "You can't be good because you're weak, because it takes strength to be good. You have to be strong to be good." So that's kind of like what I look at. It's like you have to be strong, and then you have to learn how to control that is where the virtue comes into play. So again, just because you're big and strong, if you don't know how to control it, doesn't mean you're good. So you can be strong and good. You can be strong and bad. You know what I mean? But it's hard to be weak and good. It's easy to be weak and bad. That's usually where predators and stuff like that come. They target, because they're weak inside, they target other weak, and they, predators and stuff like that. So being strong, the virtue is being good. That's what you're looking to do. But in order to be good, you have to be strong.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
Like he comes up with sometimes he goes out there with his stuff, but sometimes he says something that just really, really clicks with you. And so I've been on a much of a personal development kind of avenue, being a father.
Yeah, of course.
Biggest thing was becoming a father is learning how, okay, now I'm shaping this kid into being somebody. So I better get my shit in order, because he's going to see everything that I do, and he's going to imitate everything that I do, good and bad. So let me get my shit straight, so that way I can help this young man grow up to be the best version of himself.
Right.
So
that's incredible. You're probably like the coolest dad ever.
Oh God, no. I try to be the dad that I necessarily didn't have, because my dad was 90 hours, 100 hours a week working, raising a business. So it kind of is like a controversy in my own brain. It was like, I want to be the dad that I really didn't have growing up, because he wasn't around very often. He was only home at nighttime just before we were getting to bed. So like I saw my dad 1 hour, 2 hours a day. But it kind of, because I didn't have him there, I became more self-reliant. Right. So I kind of gained a certain attribute of myself, because I didn't have my father figure around. Now I'm around my son more than any dad is ever around their kids. So I kind of look at it as kind of a two-sided coin, where am I benefiting him as much as maybe I think by being around him as much? Or am I not? Am I not allowing him to find his own way, because dad's always there to kind of help guide him, right? So it's just like I sometimes I struggle with how much I'm around him, how much I'm helping him grow. Am I helping him grow because I'm around him helping him grow? You kind of see what I'm saying? Like kids need to sometimes be by themselves to learn by making mistakes.
Right.
So if I'm always there to tell him, no, don't make that mistake, is he going to learn those lessons that I learned because I didn't have my dad there? So sometimes it's something that I struggle with, because it's important that I know to be there for him.
Right.
But sometimes I'm like, you know what? I got to maybe not be there for him so much. It's kind of funny to say
it's
it
all
like
the balance.
that. Yeah, it's about the balance. Exactly. Yeah. You see a kid that has the person there to do everything for them. Who do they grow up to be? Probably not as strong as somebody that had to fend for themselves their whole life.
Yeah.
But again, it's that playing that balance of
it.
So.
I think too, I mean, it's just like leading by example, right?
Yeah,
so
that's why.
You probably got like from your dad, your work ethic, seeing him grind out 90 hours a week and like run his own business. Like, do you think that you would be a business owner today if you didn't see him build his own business?
Maybe not. And again, maybe
you never know. Yeah.
My emotional ability, the ability to regulate my own emotions. If I had him there, maybe I would have been better at doing it, because I could kind of work out being a guy. A boy needs a man to understand how a man feels or a boy feels. Right? Talking to your mom as a boy, she don't get it. You know what I mean? She grew up as a girl, and we're wired differently. I don't care what you say. Little boys and little girls are wired differently. Not you, but people. So
no, again, it's true. Yeah.
As my son gets older and can maybe communicate with me more, I'll be able to help him navigate that period of growth, especially like puberty. Time. I think that's the most important part of having a father figure around you, is that puberty stage where you're going through a whole lot of changes and you don't know how to navigate the world. Yeah.
All right. I just have a couple more questions. I won't take too much more of your time.
No problem.
But what advice would you give somebody like in their 30s and 40s? Because I started training when I was 30. Yeah. And I know that it's like, a lot of hobbyists kind of come into it later. Yeah. What advice would you give to somebody coming into jiu-jitsu like later in life?
I mean, obviously starting slow is super important. You can't expect to be in your 30s and train 6 days a week. If you can do it and you feel it, great. But listening to your body is super important. Don't compare yourself to the kid that's 20 years old that doesn't maybe have kids or have more responsibilities. So don't compare yourself to anybody else in the school. Okay, just let your journey be your journey. If you want to come in and you want to roll one round, then you roll one round. You get as much as you can out of that round. and then you go home. Okay. But if you are going to train less, make sure that you maximize your training. So when you're coming in, have a set goal. I think when you're first starting, you don't know anything. So just come in and just try to pay attention, just learn, try to hear what the person's saying. Don't just listen, hear what they're saying. Okay. Try to absorb as much information as you can. If you need to take notes, if you're that person that takes notes, I've never been that person, but I know people that have taken every single class. They have booklets. They have 1,000 booklets in their house of every single class they've ever taken, a note they've written on what we were teaching, what they were learning, what little click. Again, listen to your body. If you are going to train less than optimal, 3 days a week, I think, is optimal. If you can train 3 days a week, you're going to be able to progress. If you can train less than that, if you are going to train 1 day a week, you got to try to maximize your training. You got to go there with a goal and just really be dead set on that goal. Okay, whether it be not offensive at all. Like a lot of times it's just survival, right? Everybody wants to be offensive right off the bat. You're like, that's the first question. Hey, coach, I don't know what to get from this position. I don't know what okay. Did you survive? Did you get to, like, even if it's offensive, it's like, I got to side control. I didn't know what to do. Okay, don't do anything.
That's great.
Just keep side control. Position. Yeah. Just keep side control. If that's your lesson, if that's your day, if that's what you got out of the class is just learning how to keep side control, then that's a good lesson. You don't have to always do the next thing. The next thing will come to you over time, right? Once you get so good at controlling side control that they give you mount, then you know how to, okay, then there's mount and you take it. And then I don't know what to do in mount. Okay, then just keep mount. That's it. That's all you got to worry about. Okay. And then over time, the opportunities for attacking will come. And that just takes you training long enough to where the next crop of people come in. And that's what I think a lot of jiu-jitsu is. It's like, you got to just train long enough to where new people come in. And now you know more than them. And now you have the ability to do what you wanted to do before. Right. You just got to stick with it. If you're like, oh, I've been training for 3 months and I can't get any submissions. Too bad, man. Too bad.
I tell people straight up, like, get prepared to just be like smashed for a while.
That's what it is. And that's really what it is. And being a small person, you got to kind of deal with that. You kind of learn that road a lot sooner than other people. Some people are bigger and stronger and they don't kind of get smashed as much as they probably should. It comes back. It comes around full circle. Yeah. Eventually a bigger guy is going to come into class and then you're going to start to feel what it's like. And then you're going to start to have to learn the technique. So everything comes around. Everybody kind of has their day, and just got to stick with it long enough, and you'll learn all the lessons that you need to learn. Stick with it long enough, whether it's in your first year or in year 8, because you're a big, strong, athletic dude. You're eventually going to come across the guy that's bigger, stronger, more athletic, better technique than you, and you're going to be that nail, and you're going to have to learn how to deal with it. That's it.
Yeah. I think that one of the coolest things about jiu-jitsu is like how it just brings people from all walks of life together.
It's a microcosm, 100%.
Like, I'm sure that you have tons of people in here that you're like, I don't think that I would ever like know them in the outside world, but like you come in here and you just like, it's its own community.
Of course, yeah. It's a microcosm of life, 100%. Yeah. It's not, there's no race, creed. Again, obviously it costs money to train, right? Obviously. So, maybe if somebody can't afford training, then they're not going to be there. But for the most part, you can afford training. I shouldn't even say that. You can afford training. You can be surprised at how much money they waste every month.
Oh my gosh.
Waste money. They say, I don't have enough money to train. I think it's absolute BS. It's just not important enough to you.
Yeah.
If it's important enough to you, you will find the $100 or the $50 or the drop-in class once a week. Again, most classes are $25, $35 to drop into, okay? If you want to train once a week and you can't cut something out of your life to figure out where $25, but that comes with like just being able to earn income. Right. If you have a regular 9-to-5 job, if you're working 40 hours a week and you can't seem to find $25 a week to scrape up to do a class that you really want to do, then it's just not important enough to you.
It's discipline. It's all discipline.
Everybody can find something that they do every week that they can cut out, or they can find ways to save, or hustle a little bit harder, find a side job. Okay, you want to only work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and you don't want to do anything on the weekend, then that's fine. That's up to you. But jiu-jitsu is really important. You're going to find that side job on a Saturday.
You got to invest in yourself.
You're going to find that side job. You're going to work at a bar or whatever. You're going to do whatever you have to do. Jiu-jitsu is important enough to you. I was working 2 jobs, training for fights. Like I was 100% committed to it. So I was working 2 jobs. It was working in a restaurant during the day, working in a bar at nighttime, training during the afternoons and when I could. So again, the excuse to where I can't afford it, it's just not important enough to do. That's all it is.
Yeah, for sure. So I usually wrap up episodes with some rapid fire questions.
Cool.
If you're down for that.
Yeah, cool.
So gi or no gi?
I prefer no gi, but I love doing both. Again, it's mat time.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's mat time. So if you your school only does 3 gi classes and 3 no gi classes a week, if you can make all 6 classes, you're going to get more mat time. So if you're only going to limit yourself to 3 days a week when you could do 6, you're limiting your mat time, you're limiting your growth. So,
for sure.
So I prefer no gi as far as me training, but I do everything.
What's your favorite submission?
I Kimura in general. As a basic Kimura, only because it's not only a submission, it's a means of transition. You know what I mean? And so many things that tie to the Kimura.
You can get it all over the place.
You can go from side control to the back. You can go from Kimura to armbar to triangle without never letting go of the Kimura. You can go to the back from this. So I think the Kimura trap system, I would say overall would be my favorite system. If somebody wants to put a system into play, Kimura trap.
Yeah. What is your go-to post-competition meal?
Oh, Five Guys.
Five Guys, nice.
That's
burgers is a go-to.
I competed this past January, and I competed out with Syracuse Grappling Industry, and it was my first time competing in 7 years.
Oh, wow.
So I jumped back into competition after 7 years. So after the competition, right to Five Guys.
Love that.
Double cheeseburger, fries.
I always get a burger, too.
Though.
I always get a burger and a beer. Honestly, it's like you got to. Yeah. What about if you had a super fight tomorrow, what would your walkout song be?
Fighting. When I used to fight, I used to come out to Skrillex.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
I haven't been into that kind of house music, whatever you want to call it nowadays. But I mean, that would definitely bring me back to those fighting days when I was fighting amateur and pro. So I would probably say Bangarang. Skrillex Bangarang.
That is so great.
Just to kind of give myself like I'm young again, like kind of like bring me back to like 10 years ago when I was fighting.
A+ choice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Very high energy. You know what I mean? Yeah.
What's the coolest place you've ever trained or competed?
The coolest place I ever trained, I've been fortunate enough to train all over the country. When I went to Jean-Jacques out in Tarzana, that was probably the coolest place I was in. Not only because everybody was cool there, I got to train with Jean-Jacques personally. I got to roll with him, and that was a super awesome experience. He was so cool. He's like my guy.
Yeah.
Like when I say who do I want to like emulate as far as like a jiu-jitsu personality, he's my guy. His game, his style, his presence. Jean-Jacques Machado is my man. He's my number one go-to as far as like be like Jean-Jacques.
Yeah.
If you want to be like somebody, be like Jean-Jacques.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Last question I always ask everybody is if your best friend had to describe you in 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
Oh, my best friend? Oh, geez.
Or your wife, or whoever.
I would hope, obviously, patience is my number one. Very, very patient to my downfall sometimes. Patient to my downfall. Patient, polite, and maybe loyal. I could say I'm a very loyal person. Treat me right, treat you right, type of thing.
Yeah, I think that I would throw in very disciplined and hardworking as well.
I appreciate it.
I just think you're so awesome.
Thank you.
I really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you for having me.
So MK Martial Arts, where can people find you?
Everywhere on social media, everything's pretty much MK Martial Arts. You might have some issues finding it on YouTube because of Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
We had to spell Mortal Kombat with a K.
Of course.
If it wasn't Kombat with a K, it would have been fine. But MK Martial Arts on everything, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We have an event coming up. Matt Hamill is going to be coming to our school June 21st for a wrestling seminar. So if you're relatively close by and you're listening to this, you go on our website, mkmartialarts.net. You click the sign up button. You'll find the registration for the Matt Hamill seminar. And yeah, all the information is in there. Reach out to us, DM us if you have any questions. I'm super easy to get in contact with on any social media or on our website. Our contact information is all in there. And I look forward to hearing from you guys.
Yes, I'm so jealous. I wish I could come to the Matt Hamill seminar.
I hope it's going to be a success.
Yeah, so 10 out of 10. Anybody who's in the area, recommend coming and dropping in.
Thanks,
you guys, thank you again so much for everything. I love training here. So
love having you.
Yes,
we look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, thanks so much. All right, this was awesome. You're like my favorite interview.
Oh, thanks.
I think.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Check us out on Instagram at chokeholdsandchillpod or shoot us a message at chokeholdsandchillpod@gmail.com.